Welcome to Focus on Living TV. Today I'm super excited because I bring you my interview with David Hunter-Smith. David is a leading plastic surgeon who specialises in breast reconstruction. Now, David is a fantastic person, and I know that firsthand because he actually did my breast reconstruction. So when I was faced with having a mastectomy, I was also able to have a reconstruction at the same time. So today he shares all my burning questions that I had at the time around what are the different types, what are the risks involved, what are the costs of a reconstruction. He tells you how it is. He also adds in there some information about a survey that they've done here in Victoria where they took women that had had a reconstruction versus women that had not, and just how they felt about the quality of their life. So I hope you enjoy it. David, can you tell me about the different types of reconstruction?
Broadly speaking, there are two different types of reconstruction. There's reconstruction when you use an implant, and there's also reconstructions where you use your own body. For instance, with an implant-based reconstruction, we tend to use things like this. This is a breast implant, and it's an expander, a breast tissue expander. And what it does is it goes underneath the skin, and we insert fluid through a little port that usually goes through, that we inject it through the skin, and it's put in relatively empty, and then we expand the implant over a period of time, so it's like a pregnancy. And what happens is that stretches the skin. So during a mastectomy, the skin is lifted up and it's quite thin. And if you try to stretch it up too quickly, then it can damage the skin. So often, not always, but often we'll put an expander implant in first and then stretch it up over time. And then after the stretching process, we'll overexpand it so that the skin's a bit overexpanded, and then take it out and put in a more permanent implant. And they're usually a teardrop-shaped implant or a bidimensional implant, although some surgeons use round implants, and they're placed underneath the skin, and they're either saline or gel-filled implants. Gel is more popular than saline at the moment. So in your scenario, it was a little bit different because you needed to have preoperative chemotherapy for 6 months, which meant that you had a little bit more time to think about the pros and cons of reconstruction and how important it would be for you and how it would fit into your overall game plan. For some women, it's a bit quicker than that. They get the sudden diagnosis of breast cancer, they have biopsies, they have sentinel lymph node biopsies, then they have all sorts of issues. Talk to them about, what's the type of tumour, are the nodes involved, are the hormone receptors involved, will it be Herceptin positive or negative, do they need chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and then if you throw in a reconstruction discussion, which is also quite complicated, and then they have to make a decision in 1 week or a few days, it's often overwhelming. So it depends, and it also depends on your breast cancer surgeon, whether or not they feel very strongly about the need for immediate versus delayed reconstruction. And those things all play a role in determining on how women progress. The other major form of reconstruction is obviously using your own tissue, and you've got to rob Peter to pay Paul. So you've got to take tissue from some part of the body to do that, and the common areas are from the tummy. So the tissue that we normally throw away during a tummy tuck, you can actually use to reconstruct the breast. And the tissue needs to be kept alive, so it needs a blood supply. And so it can be transferred up to the breast area, either attached to some muscle, or it can be taken out and it's free of the body and reattached, and then the blood vessels reconnected with microsurgery. And then there are different ways of taking the tissue with regard to how much muscle you take. You can take a lot of muscle, no muscle, or a little bit of muscle. And there's sort of technical issues that don't really make an enormous difference to the final result, but can have an impact on how healthy your abdominal wall is afterwards. You can take tissue from the back. It's another common way of doing it. The back tissue doesn't provide a lot of volume, but it can if it's a small. If someone's got small breasts, you can use the bottom. It's less common. You can use the upper part of the bottom and the lower part of the bottom, and you can use the inner thigh in women who have got very suitable amounts of tissue on the inner thigh, but they're sort of less common procedures. And then there's new techniques which are experimental and are evolving. At St Vincent's Hospital, they're growing breast tissue. Wayne Morrison and his team up at the Bernard O'Brien Institute are transferring fat and growing vascularised breast tissue. It's called NeoPEC. It's really quite experimental. It's not there yet, but probably in years to come it will become a reasonably standard way of reconstructing the female breast.
You know, David, another concern that I had was just around what was going to be the safest option, with an implant. And I guess, you know, we went for using my own tissue on one, and then on the other I do have an implant, and we went for a saline implant, and that was to even it up. Can you talk a bit about, you know, the safety of, you know, the gel implants these days?
Yeah, it's a really big issue, and it's an important issue. I mean, breast implants were first used in the 1970s, and they've evolved over time. So the very first generation implants had very thin silicon shells, and the gel on the inside was like a runny liquid oil. And if you put an implant on a piece of paper overnight, you'd come back the next day and there'd be a stain where the gel had leaked out all over the paper. That was in the 70s, and so they were thin shells and they bled, and the silicon was like a runny silicon. The shells now are a lot better. They're very, very low bleed, and the silicon on the inside has been heavily cross-linked, so that it's more like a jelly that sits in a fridge rather than a runny jelly. So that if the implant failed, then, and implants, if they do fail, they tend to fail at folds, little tiny folds that occur on the edge of the implant, and over time they rub. And if an implant with a cohesive gel inside of it then leaked, then there'd be a knuckle of gel that would come out rather than a whole spewing out of liquid silicon that could go everywhere. There's been multiple studies that have looked at the safety of silicon. There was originally, during the Dow Corning days, there was fear about whether silicon oil in the body could cause rheumatoid arthritis and other diseases like that, and that's been disproven. The implants do not increase your risk of breast cancer. There's certainly local problems that can happen because they're foreign bodies. So your body will seal it off with a layer of scar tissue, and that happens in every woman. Occasionally that can harden. You can have problems with movement of breast implants and leaking of gel that can come out. But they're approved by the government now. There was recently a scare by the PIP implant company who changed their manufacturing process in France and used, you know, Bunnings grade silicon because of economic reasons, and the government didn't pick it up early enough, and there are a lot of women, including many women in Australia, with those implants. But the other brands of implants that are used are relatively safe. Nothing's perfectly safe, but they're relatively safe. And there's certainly very good devices for breast reconstruction. In your scenario, where you've got a breast implant underneath a native breast, we had lots of discussion, and particularly with your breast cancer surgeon, because of the risk of potentially hiding a breast cancer in that breast. But with the use of modern mammography, multiple shot mammography, also MRI scanning, it is possible to image the breast even with a breast implant in situ.
Can you talk about the cost of reconstruction? I know with my surgery, I was about $8,000 out of pocket, and that was after private medical cover. How does someone in need afford this?
Cost is a really difficult thing because women, anyone, should be given the same treatment irrespective of their ability to pay. So there needs to be, and if we're a civilised and sophisticated society community, then we should be able to provide women with breast reconstruction, whether they've got private insurance or they've got no public insurance, or they've just got Medicare or whatever it is. They still should be able to get the same treatment irrespective of their ability to pay. So, and we've been working very hard, certainly on the peninsula in recent times, actually in the last 12 months, to develop a multidisciplinary breast cancer service in the public setting, so women can access that and get timely reconstructions and be completely covered by Medicare. Now, the problem is when you go and see someone in their private hospital setting, in their private practice, then there's the normal costs and things that occur in a private practice. You know, the Medicare rebates, this is going to sound political, but the Medicare rebates don't go up, but the costs of running a practice go up. And so what happens is that over time, and when you've been in practice for many years, the rebate from Medicare doesn't really change. It doesn't even keep up with CPI, but the costs go up. So there becomes a gap, and these gap payments become incredibly difficult and often quite prohibitive to women to have treatment. So you've got a scenario where you've got a vulnerable person who's had breast cancer treatment and has got psychological and self-esteem issues perhaps, and want to feel normal, and then they're faced with an out-of-pocket bill, and it's difficult.
So is there an option for them?
There is, yeah. I mean, the option is to be treated through the public sector.
What is the quality of life like for someone who's had a reconstruction versus the quality of life for someone that hasn't?
We did some research recently through Peninsula Health, which looked at the quality of life measures for women who have had reconstruction and those who have not had reconstruction. And the results, and a really well validated methodology in doing it, and it really clearly shows that it statistically significantly improves women's quality of life, self-esteem, ability to do all sorts of activities, and certainly feelings of improved sexuality and all those sorts of really sort of personal, difficult issues by having reconstructions. So, you know, we've used some of that, read those research findings to sort of leverage the hospitals a bit to sort of try to improve the service, and we've really increased the ability to provide women with no private health insurance or who find out-of-pocket expenses really difficult to be done through the public sector.
I hope you've enjoyed my interview with David, and I hope it helps you in your healing journey. So if you'd like to leave a comment, please do so below, or go across to our website, focusonliving.com.au, because really all the best discussions happen back on the website. So I look forward to seeing you next week, and if you haven't signed up for these weekly updates, you can do that by going across to our website. Thank you.
Just slow down, everyone, yo.